go. If you have jumped on, just drop us a message in the chat box. There, just say hello, let us know that you're on, make sure that you can hear us, see us okay. We're not expecting any issues today, so if anything does go wrong, just hit refresh in your browser and that should bring you back on and refresh everything on there. The webinar is going to be recorded today, so if you do have to jump out, take a phone call, or you miss any bits of it, then we'll send out a recording of it after, so you can go back through and capture any bits that you've missed. Also, if you've got any colleagues or anybody, other businesses that you might work with, whether that's businesses, accountants, who think and you think it'd be relevant for them, please make sure you pass it around. Share the love, so to speak. So everything's recorded for you guys to come back on as well, and we'll drop an email after, also with any relevant links and information after the webinar as well, so you've got that content for you on there. Like I say, in terms of housekeeping wise, we're not expecting any issues today, so if all of a sudden you do have any issues, feel free to drop a message. And as we're going along as well, if there's anything in particular on the slide where you don't quite understand it and you put something in the chat box to say, sorry, I don't get that, can you go over it again? And try to be quite specific, because sometimes obviously on a slide, we could be talking for a little while. So if you're not specific, we're not necessarily going to know what it is you need us to go back over and to cover. We have got Q&A at the end of the webinar today, so we're going to have 5-10 minutes at the end to make sure we answer any questions. So if you've got any questions that sort of come up as you're going along, please just put them in the chat box. Make sure that you don't forget about them. We won't necessarily answer them straight away as we're going along, but we'll definitely make sure that we get them at the end as well. So please make use of the Q&A box and put those questions in there, just so you don't forget. And also, like I say, if there's anything that you don't quite understand as we're going along, put that in there as well, but just make it specific. So I'm going to hand over to Eneko and Sarah now to introduce themselves and to run through the webinar with you guys today. And I'll jump back on nearer to the end and join in on the Q&A session. Over to you guys.
Great. Thank you so much, Dave. Great. Thank you. Great. So I am Sarah. This is Eneko. We're going to talk to you a bit more about Claim IQ and about compliance and AI and the future of R&D with AI at the heart of it.
Yes, I'll just quickly share my screen, Sarah. We can go through everything through the presentation there. Just to double check, Sarah, can you see my screen?
I can see your screen.
Fantastic. Always good. Great.
So today we're talking about how do you stay ahead of compliance within the age of AI. So I'm sure everyone is using some form of AI within their practice, even if it's in email or for work. So how can you make sure that when using these tools, you are staying ahead of what is and isn't going to be relevant for legislation? Next slide, please, Eneko. Great. So a little bit about us. I'm Sarah Malter, Managing Director of Capitalize and Capitalized Technology, and this is Eneko Igartua, our Head of Operations. We've been in this field since 2011, so quite a long time. We've seen all the changes that have happened, the ups, the downs, the sideways, and we are here to talk to you a little bit about how technology has now impacted what we're doing going forward. Next slide, please. So, as I said previously, we've been here since 2011. And we've mainly focused on claim preparation. Previously, we have done thousands of claims in terms of getting them ready from beginning to filing to compliance checks. And we had developed a software called made.simplr. This was for our own internal use originally, and it helped us to be able to compile all of the information for both the technical and financial narratives. We then saw that some of our accountancy partners were quite interested in the software as well. So we took our hand and said, okay, well, maybe we can change this and help our partners to be able to do it for themselves. So then we created made.simplr specifically for accountants and providers using logic flow based on the thousands of claims that we've done. And the dev team that we currently have, they've built projects for both public and private entities and fintech. So it's really quite an impressive piece of software. And of course, our own Eneko, as well as us doing thousands of claims, has received a distinction from the R&D community. If you guys don't know about it already, that's a great community to be able to get information around R&D and any education as well. Next slide, please, Eneko. So very quickly, we're going to talk about legislation, but I wanted to just explain what is Made Simpler, what is Claim IQ, because you've seen both of those on our slide today. So Made Simpler originally was our R&D tax relief compliant software, and that is a full soup to nuts software from beginning to end, doing all technical and financials and AIFs. It's a full suite to be able to do any R&D claims process. And Claim IQ is our smart tools that we had built on top of Made Simpler. But then in building them, we also realized that these tools, they're quite useful, would also be a great standalone. So if you already have your process and perhaps you're using either a different software or using a different way internally, you could still use these smart tools to be able to get a better look on how to put the technical and financials together. We're the only ones that are building this that have an R&D tax professional background, and we've designed it specifically for accountants and consultants. Next slide, please.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm going to hand over to my colleague Eneko, who's going to talk to you a little bit about what we know about the government and HMRC and how they're utilizing AI and what that will mean for you putting together an R&D tax credit claim.
Great, thanks, Sarah. We will give you a full demo of everything of Claim IQ and Made Simpler. But before that, we'll talk a little bit about the current state of AI and how to use it. And let's talk a little bit about HMRC, government investments in IT and AI. What is happening? What do we know? So as part of the wider digital services strategy of the government, they have implemented a lot of investment, about £1.7 billion, to modernize HMRC's data infrastructure and digital services. And this includes things from the obvious, expanding AI-powered self-service tools. They do try to have most customer interactions be digital by 2030. But it's also worth noting that Microsoft announced just a couple of days ago a $30 billion investment in the UK's AI infrastructure. So we are going to be seeing just more and more use of AI across the board, and certainly within government. Also worth noting is that in January of 2025, the AI Opportunities Action Plan was released. This is a recommendation roadmap, so it's not a clear road plan, but it is very much guidance as to where things are going to go. And while it doesn't address R&D tax relief specifically, it does address how AI can help in delivering investment vehicles. These can be things like R&D tax relief, EIS, SEIS. So it's very timely and very much something that is just going to be more of going forward. And then let's talk a little bit about what we actually know about HMRC's AI enforcement around R&D tax relief. I'll talk in a little bit about a very timely first-year tribunal, of which we'll know some more information soon. But first, I'll talk a little bit about HMRC's existing flagship AI system, which is the Connect platform. This is a very powerful data analytics platform, which will only get more powerful going forward. And they claim it holds over 55 billion data items. And the way that it works is it cross-references data from many, many different sources, from the obvious, things like tax returns, bank accounts, to things like property records, social media, even online marketplaces, with the goal of detecting inconsistencies and flagging potential tax evasion or avoidance. So there's already a large system in place that is not specific to R&D, but it very much could be used to cross-reference things around R&D tax relief. And as I'm sure all know here, from August 2023, HMRC implemented the new additional information forms for R&D tax relief claims, which, while a lot of us were submitting R&D reports prior, it did give a clear structure to the information that HMRC requested around R&D. So HMRC has a lot of information on file around R&D claims, and they can use AI to do a lot of things. They can do things like scan the additional information forms to better summarize them, understand the information, and detect things like if templates are being used. If you are using heavily templated claims for the narratives, it's worth noting that because the claims do need to have information pertaining to that accounting period in question, they shouldn't be too generic. So those things can be flagged by HMRC. They can look at language patterns. They can use technology to assess the technological baseline. So they can use AI for that to compare what the claimant is saying to what the AI is saying. And of course, like we discussed, they can cross-reference many different sources. They can look at things like big changes in claim size, how the information compares to the company's other information, like SIC codes. They can even do things like compare the claim against other information they have, AI-generated claims, bad or non-compliant claims, just to have a contrasting situation. So there's a lot that they can do. And we do know that they're likely doing more. So as I mentioned, there is a first-tier tribunal which directed HMRC to reveal AI use in R&D tax relief rejections. In particular, we're expecting an answer very soon from them. This came from a Freedom of Information request, which HMRC did not want to deal with. But the ICO was also involved, and they have said they're not going to appeal. So we're now waiting for HMRC to say whether they will appeal or not. I think it'll be today or tomorrow, so very, very timely. But essentially, what does this mean? Well, if HMRC don't appeal and they have to disclose the use of AI in R&D tax relief rejections, we could expect some level of proactive but likely limited disclosure. Things like confirming whether AI was used in the R&D claim rejections. This may include things like supplementary information, oversight agreements, maybe anonymized guidelines or policies, some things that would likely be seen as not jeopardizing enforcement practices. So to be seen what disclosure would be from HMRC, but we wouldn't expect it to be in depth. If HMRC does decide to appeal, this would likely be lodged with the upper tribunal, and it would extend the entire timeline. There would certainly be, legal scrutiny and concerns around transparency and AI governance and public administration. So it's very, very timely, both for R&D and for just the use of AI within government. But what will this FTT mean? Well, let's assume that HMRC either don't appeal or end up having to disclose the use of AI, in particular in compliance checks. Well, for advisors, it may provide new grounds for challenging HMRC decisions. If you do receive rejection letters which are very vague or don't look to be formulaic, you may be able to get more information and appeal on the grounds that they haven't been looked at by a human. And you may also have leverage for freedom of information requests. This FTT started with an FY. So if you do think that AI is being used inappropriately, you may be able to get more information through that. And what does it mean for the businesses themselves, for the claimants? Well, of course, there could be increased confidence to push back based on these same reasons if the answers seem generic from HMRC's end or AI generated. And very importantly, there will and should be greater scrutiny of sensitive data. All these R&D claims have a lot of sensitive data, not just financial, but technical, a lot of IP and know-how, and companies should worry about whether their confidential information is being processed through third-party AI tools without oversight. In particular, there are IP-sensitive fields like defense and medtech for which this would be a very big problem. It's not just a matter of whether the data is anonymized. Even if it's anonymized and the company name is not present, having that IP be potentially leaked or processed incorrectly by AI could be a very big problem. Of course, we could also experience some delays in claim processing. HMRC having to change processes or review its systems has usually led to some slowdown, so that may be the case. And what does this mean overall for the use of AI in R&D? Well, as we said, caution with client data is going to become very important. This case highlights the risk of putting sensitive data, especially technical information, into potentially public AI models. We don't know what HMRC is using overall. If there are a lot of advisors, they may be using different things, and the data can be processed in different ways. And of course, it's a big spotlight on compliance. Compliance has always been key for R&D tax relief, as it always should have been, but this really is going to put a spotlight on compliance with AI. So if HMRC is being held accountable for explainability around AI, it may be the case that accountants and claimants are also being held to similar standards. So using AI tools that have clear traceability of all the information and where it comes from is going to be very, very important. So let's talk a little bit about responsible use of AI. What is a good or responsible use? A good use would be a company using their own large language model on an internal server. Obviously, that's not feasible for most companies, but the next best thing would be for the data to be held on a UK sovereign server within a closed system. That means that the data stays in the UK and nowhere else, so that it can remain GDPR compliant. And within a closed system, meaning that the data is not leaking to any other tenants or clients, and that is not being used to train the system. Even if anonymized, that data is still IP sensitive, and there could be IP leakage if it's used to train the system. So it's very important to know what the AI system is doing. Not all AI systems are made equal. They may look shiny, but on the back end, you need to know what's being used and making sure that it's, number one, GDPR compliant, and number two, that the data is being kept and processed correctly. So a bad system would be to use OpenAI products that are commercial. Things like ChatGPT, DeepSeek, and Claude. Even if you pay for a premium, that just means that you get more queries. It doesn't mean that the data is being processed as it should be, or when it comes to IP-sensitive data. Unless you have a zero retention agreement with these companies, which you likely won't. These are usually reserved for very large actors. That means that every single query or piece of information put into the system is retained. Specifically, there was a case recently in the US around OpenAI where it was determined that every piece of information put through the system, every query, must remain on US soil. That means that by definition, using those some of these OpenAI products that are commercial, you would not be GDPR compliant. And also, if it goes back to train the system, you would not have any right of recall. So it's very important to know what your AI is doing and that it's processing your IP-sensitive data correctly. And quickly, we'll talk about who else is using AI. You know, we talked a lot about HMRC and how to use AI, but the entire information supply chain with R&D, there's quite a lot of information going in there, is using AI at the moment. You have your claimants who may use AI to fill in questionnaires, to summarize call notes. They may even be using AI to create emails that go into your data for R&D. So it's very important to verify that the competent professionals are checking and producing any data that goes into the claim. Whether AI is used or not, the competent professional requirement needs to be upheld. That's very important. And of course, advisors are using AI for using tools like ClaimIQ and made.simplr for auto drafting, assessing baselines, as we'll show you. So it's very important that those tools that you're using are processing the data correctly and keeping it safe. And of course, we talked a lot about HMRC. They are using likely AI, as we'll find out soon enough officially, for processing information. So it's very important to know what's going on. And I'll quickly throw it back to Sarah, who'll talk just a little bit about the pitfalls of AI and how to actually use it correctly.
Great, thank you so much, Eneko. So I think it's also really important to think about how you're using these tools and where that data is going. So you'll see first and foremost accountability and traceability. A lot of these tools, you may or may not understand where that information is coming from. So generative AI means that it has created something from the information you've given it. Now, understanding where it's generating that information from and how to be able to trace back to it should, for instance, HMRC have any queries, it's going to be paramount so that you can explain how something has been come to a conclusion. So how has it reached an idea or an argument and why that is and where it's taken from. So ensuring that it is using relevant data sources, especially if you're doing online work, that it's journals that are noted and as and when. So that's really important. Loss of domain expertise. So I think and I'm sure everyone knows this, these are tools. They're not here to replace humans, at this point, at least anyway. So understanding the outputs of this are of paramount importance. So if you are working in a very specific field, quantum computing, and you have outputs, it's important that somebody who reads it also understands what it has created, because just because it sounds like it should make sense doesn't mean that it necessarily does. So making sure you have people who are trained in those areas to ensure that the outputs are correct is paramount importance. Echoes and echo chambers and confirmation bias. So AI was created with engagement in mind, and that's really important to remember. So they want the user to stay engaged, to stay in conversation, and in doing so, sometimes they take potentially circular logic or flawed ideas, and they will run with it because they want to keep the user engaged. So it's important to also take a step back and realize, is this assumption correct? What is it based on? So knowing that that can be the case, can we just ensure that you're going the right way? Excuse me. Reduction in claim quality. So you also want to make sure it is generative AI, that you're going to be, each claim is going to be unique to the claimant. So instead of running through multiple systems, using it as tools, and then of course, being able to craft and create an individualized claim for this. And then of course, data security and confidentiality. Eneko spoke a little bit about this before. ensuring that the data, and especially around IP, even if it is anonymized, is kept confidential. What you don't want is your client's data going back and retraining somebody's algorithm and then potentially showing up to support a different claim. Next slide, please, Eneko. So with all these tools, what does that now mean for you as somebody who will prepare an R&D tax credit claim? So I don't think that R&D providers and accountants are going to go the way of the dinosaurs. I think instead we just need to evolve how we approach these. So first and foremost, validating the AI inputs. So it is up to you in your interviews to assess eligibility, to assess understanding of things like baselines, etc. These tools can help you, but it's still ultimately your job to use your own knowledge around this to help with this. If used incorrectly, AI can potentially make almost anything sound like it meets guidelines if you prompt it enough. So it is also about using common sense when you're using these. Maintaining oversight when you're using it as to the outputs, so making sure that somebody who reads the outputs understands what it is that they're reading. Sometimes it can sound wonderful and you give it to a technical specialist and they say it's a word salad. So it's also really important that there is that oversight. Traceability, again, making sure you know where the information is coming from. You want it coming from relevant sources and not, Bob's blog. And then, of course, upholding the competent professionals, making sure that you are in fact working with the competent professionals giving you this information, and then of course explaining that and how that impacts your technical narrative. Next slide, please, Eneko. And I'll now hand over to Eneko, who will talk to you a little bit more about, given all of these requirements, how we've put together our ClaimIQ and Made Simpler platforms.
Great, no, thank you, Sarah. So we talked quite a bit about AI. Now let's show you what we built to help you with the process of using smart features and of compliance. So we built Made Simpler and ClaimIQ, Made Simpler being the full suite with financial module, a technical module, project review module, a report review module, sorry, and then some further analytics, and ClaimIQ, which is part of Made Simpler, but it is the technical drafting module, and I'll show you that now. So what I'll do is I will take you through a demo. So I'll just stop this presentation and take you through a demo of the software so you can see everything working. So I will quickly change my screen if that's okay. So let me stop sharing. Just one moment. Sorry, some minor technical difficulties here. There we go. Okay. Can you see my screen, Sarah? You could just confirm.
Yes, I can see your screen.
You can see the platform, yeah? Fantastic. Sorry, sometimes I find myself sharing something else without noticing. So here we're looking at ClaimIQ, which is essentially the smart drafting tool for the technical side of things. And this can be purchased separately, and I'll take you through the smart features now. So here you'll see all the claims I have in my system. You can onboard companies, put in all their details that will go into the AIF, things like UTRs, POA references, all that stuff. But let's go directly to the smart features. So we're going to look at this claim here, and this is based on a real claim that builds some lithium-ion batteries. We can view the claim here and get started. So what are we going to do in this platform? The first thing we're going to do is review our project information. And you can add as many projects as you need to. You can do up to 10, of course, based on the AIF. And here we can review all the information. You can add the project, and then we would start from this menu with the smart baseline review. So what is this? As we said, we can use AI to assess what the client is saying, compare it to the wider information out there, including academic sources, and assess whether the baseline of the project that the client is telling us does seem to match things, or whether we need to ask further questions, or whether it just looks not very good. Maybe we don't have to continue. So here you can add as many documents as you'd like, and you can also create new documents from a text input. You can copy in emails, things like that if you'd like. And what the system will do is it will put all these documents in a bucket. You can select which ones to assess, and then we can run a baseline review. And very importantly, you can do so within certain date ranges. And these are before and after the actual period of the claim, so that you can assess the data within that period. And that's important because there are some very fast moving fields, for example, AI and software development. So there may be a big development here that didn't happen a year prior. So you can very easily select the time frame you want to look at, and you can run this as many times as you'd like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to regenerate this, this baseline, and it's going to do a few things, and it will just take some seconds. The first one is look at our SIC code and understand if it looks a little suspicious or if it looks to be in line with the field of science or technology. While SIC codes are not a requirement for them to match the field of work, we do know that it's good to have them aligned with the field of work, just because that way everything seems to make sense from an outside perspective. And then what the system is doing is it's looking at all the information in my documents, and those documents can be things like client questionnaires, call transcripts, emails, things like that. And it's pulling out all of the claims that the company is making around the baseline, and it's going to assess them individually and find relevant sources. For example, we're looking at a project around lithium-ion batteries here, and the customer was saying that these batteries were widely used in consumer economics, but they face significant limitations such as energy density. So it's pulling all these things directly from my information, and it's going to assess them all one by one and give us an assessment of a couple of things so that we can then make some decisions of whether we want to go forward with this or whether we want to get more information from the client. And this will just take a second. If it's looking for a lot of information, it can take a few more seconds. It can usually take up to a minute. But yes, so it'll just run here for a moment. And this is very useful because you can run it as many times as you need. As many times as you need, and you can, especially as you get more documents from the client, things like technical questionnaires, then you can. So let me just run that again. I think when I share screen, my system gets a little slow. But yeah, you can get more documents from the client, things like additional questionnaires through the system and such, and you can run this again and again and have a record of all of your baseline reviews over time, so that you can assess things very clearly. So this is also quite useful for junior members in particular of the team. It's quite often that you may not be an expert in the field of science or technology that you're reviewing. So this can help you a lot put questions forward towards the client and understand how things are going. Yes. Okay. Let me just open this up here as well. Yeah, this will just take a few more seconds. So yeah, apologies for the quick delay on this. Okay, yeah. So you'll see it's pulling out as much as it can from those documents, and then it will just review everything here in one place. There we go. So you'll see a few things. The first one is a summary of everything. And this is a pretty good claim. So it's telling you that the assessments indicate that what the company was saying closely aligns with the technological baseline at the time. And while there were being some advances being made, the challenges described do seem to be prominent at the time. And it looks for two things. So it looks first to see if the data aligns with the sources found, and separately, if it aligns with R&D tax relief legislation. Just because something is true doesn't mean that it is relevant for R&D. And here you can see the sources that it's looking at. You can get more as needed. For example, there are some points here that are, amber. It's saying it's a little more mixed. So it's saying that, while it recognizes challenges within the industry, there was some progress. It's found in some stuff. So you may want to get more information around those points. But overall, it's looking pretty green. So it's looking pretty good. But if we wanted to get more questions from the client, we can easily create a questionnaire. And this will automatically create for us a questionnaire with relevant questions related to the main gaps in information. You can always add more as needed. And you can share these with the client through the platform, or you can download it and upload it again and use it as additional documents in your bucket of documents. So you can build more as you need until you have all the documents that you need. But let's say that we are quite happy with that baseline review, and we want to move on to the actual additional information for you. So I'm sure you're all very familiar with it. When it comes to the tech, there are 5 main questions, and you can always change them manually. But let me show you how the smart features work, so you can get a lot more out of the information. So I'll click here on my smart suggestions, and a similar interface to what we saw before. We can add more documents, so that we'll have all the ones that we added already here, and any smart baseline reviews that we carried out, any additional questionnaires from the client we want to include. And we can do 2 things. So you do have a planning mode, but first I'll show you what it looks like without it. If we don't use the planning mode, very simple. You'll just get your 5 answers based on the information that you have. These are all based on certain criteria, which are as expected by HMRC's AIF expectations and the guidelines. So what you'll see here is the system is creating these answers based only on the information we provided. And very importantly, which you'll see throughout the entire platform, you can see where the information came from and which documents it came from. This it ties to that data traceability that we discussed earlier. So at all times, you'll be able to keep track of where the information came from. So I'll show you. But we can do this, we can just run it without the planning mode and get some answers and then build up that. So it's a great way to get to a very good draft. Or we can use the planning mode, which I'll show you how it works. It's a little more in depth and it lets you do a little bit more. So if the information is a little more nuanced, you may have some points you want to include, some other points that you're not sure about. You can use the planning mode, which lets you select a lot more. So what this is going to do, this is going to pick out the pieces of information that are relevant to each question. And then it's going to let me select which ones I want to use. And it can also allow me to use headers. If I want to have headers within the answer, that's a format that some people like to use. So it's just preparing these planning modes per question. Here we go. And you'll see here all the information per question. And you can easily generate answers for each. For example, we're generating the answer here for question 1. And here we have question 3. It's picked out all these pieces of information from this document. We can select which ones to use. Let's say I don't like the last one. It's less relevant. And I can easily generate a smart search question there. Okay. And here, for example, for question 2, we can, for example, use subheaders if we'd like, and we can save those to use for other questions. So you have all these options to create different versions of the information, which can be by selecting pieces, by using headers, or you can just do it all in one go without any of this extra fluff. So you do have different options of how to get your information into the system to get to a very good draft very easily. Once you're done, you would click save, and this will save everything into your system, and they'll all appear here. And there's a few more things that we can do. For example, let's delete this so I can do it again. Here, let's say we have our answers, but we think we can get a little bit more out of them. So we have the smart edit, and this lets us do different things like lengthen, rewrite the question, and you can add additional prompts that are here, or you can add your own. Obviously, they have to be relevant to the information in question. But let's say I want to add a little more technical detail. I can also add more documents at any point, just because maybe I want to add just a separate email or something I received last minute, so we don't have to run everything again. We can just do question by question, and this can then generate suggestions that are new. As always, it will only work with information that is within the system, so it cannot make up anything else, and you'll have full data traceability of all the data that you're putting in your system, which is very important for audits or compliance checks going forward, especially when it comes to the use of AI, as we discussed. If HMRC is having to disclose things, you may need to disclose things as well. So here, for example, we can get different answers, and if we like it, we can save it. And if not, we can just let it go. And one thing here in question 2, which is what existing technological knowledge did the project plan to improve? This is the question around the baseline. And here we can also add references. So we can see all the references from our smart baseline review, and any that we like, we can include as a little bibliography of things that have been reviewed for this. So you can very easily get all the information here in one place. And you do also have this version history. This is very important because it shows any AI generated answers you've created, even if you've overridden them, even if you've changed them later, you can have a save state at a certain point in time, which will then show all the sources and where things came from. So if you do need to figure out, hey, where did this information that I said here came from, you can go back and easily see, oh, it was this point and it came from this document. So you can source things very, very easily. So let's say now that I'm quite happy with this claim, and I can then run the smart review. So we do have a final check, let's say, where you can run a review against the guidelines, and you'll see it here. Here, for example, this was once again for the same claim, which is pretty good. It gives you a summary of everything and how it's looking, and then you can see the answers one by one and how they fit within HMRC's guidelines. It looks at the legislation overall. It also looks at examples provided by HMRC and other documentation, telling you if it seems to fit or if it looks bad. And here you can select the guidelines you want to look at. By default, it shows the main ones that are most relevant. And you can get a very good idea and a last sense check of how things comply. Now, that was for a pretty good claim. But that's not always the case. I'll show you very quickly how our system is critical, and it is critical of that information, as it should be. So for example, we have here some real information that was provided by a company, which was around a project that dealt with UX changes and website development. Now, I'm sure we all know those type of activities would not typically qualify for R&D. There would have to be much more technological advance around it. So here, for example, we have put the information from the client, run the smart baseline review, and it's a very different result. For example, it does say that the assertions that the company is making are not untrue. However, they are unrelated or not relevant to R&D. They do not inherently involve technological uncertainties or advancements. So you would need to get a lot more information that is relevant for this to be a qualifying claim. And here you'll see you're getting a lot of red. So this will be a point where you either have to get more information from the client, or given how bad this one is, this would be a place to stop. So the system can give you a very good idea of how things are looking, and the review will do the same. So here it will review all your projects at once. There were 3, and you'll see this one, even though we tried to trick the system with some nice answers, it's still not happy with this project at all. It doesn't like it. It says that it's just not compliant. And the next project had a little more information, so it's saying that maybe, but you would still need to get more information. What you do want is a lot of ticks and a lot of green. Otherwise, you're probably not in a good place. Now, let's go back to my previous claim, and let's say we're ready to file everything. So we can go here and click on the additional information form. Now, I'm sure you're all familiar with the form. And here you can have all the information ready to go for the AIF. You can easily copy paste it into the AIF, and actually very, very soon you will be able to submit it directly with your agent service account. It's very important that it's yours and nobody else's, not ours, not your company's own government account, sorry, your claimant's government account, as that is what HMRC have stipulated. So you will be able to use your own agent service account to submit everything directly. And here you can add all your expenditure. If you do use the wider made.simplr platform, this will all be populated through the financial module. If not, you can easily just add your costs here, no problem. And everything will be ready in one place to put into the AIF. And I'll show you one more thing about Claim IQ before I move on. So we've looked at the entire process of putting together the technical details for the AIF. But let's say we submit it, and sometimes a compliance check is opened. So we do have a smart compliance check module, which I'll show you here. And the way that this works is it goes letter by letter. As I'm sure all you know, compliance checks, the way they work is that HMRC will send a letter, and there will be a series of questions. The first letter will usually be fairly templated with a lot of questions, and follow-up letters will be not so much questions, but arguments or points that need to be addressed. So you can do so within the system. So here we have uploaded the letter, and what it does is it pulls out all of the questions within the system automatically. So it can pull them all out for you. You can also delete them if you need to. Sometimes they might be a little redundant, some of them, but it will address everything within the document, and you can upload more documents as well, maybe additional questions that you've asked the client. And then the system will look at all your information and will tell you which documents seem to have information relevant to the question. So you can easily then get answers for that. It may be the case for some of them that there's no relevant information. For example, this was a question around patents that was not addressed in the original documents. So unless you provide more, the system wouldn't have that. So you have to provide that yourself. But here, for example, let's say that I want to look at this question, what was the baseline? So we do have information for that. So instead of having to write it manually, we can once again use our smart features. And here you'll see a very similar menu that you saw before. You can upload more documents, and you can easily select the ones you want to use. And you can also try to quote case law. There were several FTT and upper tribunals that are very relevant to R&D eligibility, especially within the last couple of years. You can see a summary of them here. And we can then generate an answer. And this is going to read through all the documents I'm selecting. It's going to read through the case law, and it's going to easily provide draft answers to all the relevant questions here. So you can go one by one. So it's very easy to use the system to pull out all the information from a letter in a readable format, and then for you to provide draft answers that you can then build on if you want to. So it makes the process of dealing with these very, very lengthy letters much, much faster. You'll see here the answer, This one was around an EdTech project, so education technology, software development, and it's also quoted here the Get On Board FDT ruling, which recognized that leveraging existing technologies can qualify as R&D, so long as there is an appreciable improvement. So you can easily get answers to everything here in one place. And that's really Claim IQ in a nutshell, all these smart features. And I'll take you very quickly through a couple of things of the wider Made Simpler platform. So I'll do that right here. Sarah, can I confirm that you can still see my screen?
I can.
I'm just going to have to share it again. 1 second. So if you wouldn't mind giving me a moment, Sarah.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll just log into my other platform.
Okay, brilliant. If there are any questions, of course, please do feel free to type away and we will see what we can do to answer them.
Okay. So 1 second. There we go. Okay, let me share my screen one more time. Sorry about that. I'm having some problems with my screen sharing today. There we go. Sarah, can you see my screen?
I can.
Okay, fantastic. So you'll see here part of the wider Made Simpler platform. I'll just show you a little bit. You'll see there's a lot more buttons, things like financials, the technicals, which are the Claim IQ module, essentially. Smart compliance checks, the AIF. And here under financial, I'll show you a couple of things. So here you can add all of the costs. You can do so manually. You can connect to Xero. You can do through Excel, which is our, I would say, the most widely used version. You can import from an Excel file here, and you'll get a live throughput of everything being put through the system. And you can add all the different costs into the system that are relevant. And you can then add your project allocations. You can also do that automatically through the Excel file. And everything will be computed here. For example, this was a claim that dealt with 2 schemes, SME and RDEC. And this was actually split based on project funds. And here you can see a summary of all the calculations done for you within the system and all the return for the client. Now, this becomes particularly useful when you start having stacking things. You know, we have different schemes, the old schemes, the new merged RDEC and ARIS scheme, and they all work differently. You might have things like stay date, which was particularly relevant for the previous schemes, not so much for the new ones. Things like long periods of account, different projects and allocations, splits between the new schemes between ARIS and merged, if you do want to claim within both, if eligible. So once you start having all of these stacking layers, it can get a little cumbersome to do things, and the system will do it all for you in one place. So just by uploading everything, the system will calculate everything for you and let you choose options if relevant. So it will do all of it automatically once you input all the data. And I'll show you very quickly the reporting feature. I'll just go into this briefly because it's quite in-depth. It can be fully automated if you do want to have very in-depth reports with full white labeling, different sections appearing depending on claim types and things like that. But already you can see a lot just here. So let me show you a standard report so you can get an idea of what things look like. So this here. So here we have actually a live viewer of the report, which acts similar to a Google Doc. Here you can actually add different things. So we'll see, take a look at the report. In this one, we have an introductory section, the projects, we have financials, and we can choose which tables to use and such. So we can help with things like that. But here we can, for example, add comments. So let's say that I wanted to add a comment to this section. I can do so, and I can actually select who's going to see it. I can select between internal and external users. Internal would be my own company. External would be, for example, clients. So we can give them access in this way, where we can give them comments to address different points. They can then create a thread, very similar to a Google Doc. So we can actually keep information within the system. And you also have a review system, which is very useful. So if I wanted to share this with a client, I would select the contact of the company, and then I would send it to them. They will receive a link, they can log in, leave any comments, and they would submit it back to me. And they could submit it with feedback or with approval. If they submit it with approval, this essentially is a signature and counts as approval by the senior officer. So you can keep the approvals within the software as well if you'd like. And you can see a full trackability of everything. I have a lot of tracking here. I've been doing a lot of testing with this one, but you would see who sent it, who's approved it, and when. So you have full traceability of who's done what. And we also have a full audit trail, which I'll finish on here. So you can see this in different places in the platform. You have a full audit trail of all of the changes made by all of the users within the platform. This includes changes to financials, if you're using made.simplr, changes to the tech, changes to anything within the company. So you have full traceability, not just with the AI, as we saw earlier. When you use the smart features, you can track where things came from in documents, but also when it comes to the wider platform, you can see who's had their hands in what. So that if you do have an audit, you have very, very clear trackability of every single data point. And it goes to the level of even looking at different text changes, similar to a Word document. So you can see who changed what text and when very easily. So you will probably never have to use much of that. But when it comes to audits, you are most definitely covered with the full platform. And I'll very quickly just run back to the presentation, and we'll finish on a couple of points. So let me share my screen again. Okay, and let me just share this. Wonderful. Sarah, can you confirm? Can we see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes, fantastic. So as we discussed in summary, we have Claim IQ, which is for the technical drafting and the main AIF, and the compliance checks, very, very in-depth. And it forms part of the wider made.simplr platform, which has a financial module, a reporting and review module, and the full tech module, which is the Claim IQ platform, as well as other things like analytics and such. And I'll quickly go back to Sarah, who's going to talk to you just a little bit about a couple points.
Brilliant. Thanks, Eneko. So again, why work with us? Well, we've been in this industry for nearly 15 years. We are very much a compliance first provider of software, and it's really important that you've seen that through not only the work that we've done, but also our ethos and our belief in what we think the industry should be going towards. It's also really important that there is a human behind this. So as well as the actual software, there are services that we provide. So if, for instance, there's part of your team that's be great at something, but you need some more support, we offer a complete package around it, not just software, but services too, and help in various different ways, which we'll talk about in a second. And so it's really important that you have both the tech as a tool and the human to be able to help you to get where you need to go. Next slide, Eneko.
Mm-hmm.
So the key benefits of the platform, again, we've put thousands of claims through this platform already, and over 60 million in R&D saved through this. But I think probably the most important for you guys as being providers of this service is time saving. So our users report over 40% time saved per client and per report. So I think that's a really key feature, as well as really good understanding of the process and where it's coming from. Next slide, please. These are just some testimonials for some users. If anybody's interested, we are more than happy to put you in touch with someone who's already using this, and they can talk about their experience so you can hear it firsthand for yourselves. Next slide, please.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the all important, how much is this? Commercials. So these are our pricing models. Claim IQ, again, is a standalone smart feature, and this is our fee for just that specific module. If you decide you want the whole made.simplr platform, which Claim IQ is also part of, those are also available there. And for anybody watching this today, we are offering a 10% discount if you want to sign up before the 31st of October. So please do let us know. If you are interested and you'd like either a full-length demo or you'd like to try it out for yourself, please get in touch with us and we will arrange that for you. Thank you. Next slide. So just to really quickly touch on services as well, because this is where our background comes from. We do full claim preparation if that's something that's needed. We do technical report preparation or technical interviews, claim reviews, and of course, compliance checks. And one of the key things that accountants will work with us on as well is different times of year when they perhaps have quite a large number of claims coming through the system and they need some additional support. We can, of course, create support packages as and when are needed for that. Thank you. Eneko, next slide.
Yes, no, that's essentially it. So I think thank you so much for attending, and we'll open up for questions now.
Yes, and we hope that at the very least, this has given you some food for thought around how you use AI and your data and where it goes.
Amazing, thank you both. That was really, really informative, and we have got some questions that have come in. So I'm going to start with the last question, which was just on the pricing screen, which was saying on the pricing you've got different prices, and it said on the made.simplr one about up to so many claims. Is that per month? So it's like up to 25 claims, that 25 claims per month, or how does that work?
That is yearly claims.
Okay, yeah.
So it's very much in line with other pieces of software, and we can always have a chat and see what's the best model for each person.
Cool, perfect.
Provider.
Yeah, thanks for clearing that one up. One of the questions that's come through as well is from an accountant who is trying to work out identifying, I suppose, opportunities within their client base. And is that something that you can help out with, or the software help out with? I suppose if you have a business and it's a case of, well, we're not sure if there's a claim here or not, what does that look like when working with you guys?
Yeah, happy to take this one, Sarah, if you'd like.
Yeah, go for it, yeah.
Yes, so it's twofold. The first part is, yes, the software does help with that. In particular, the smart baseline review can easily help you understand whether, number one, what the client's saying is accurate, number two, whether it aligns with R&D, so that very easily can help you deal with prospecting. Additionally, as Sarah mentioned, we do provide services, so we can also provide all kinds of reviews. We can even jump on assessment calls with the client if the software is a little inconclusive or it seems to be a little borderline, as sometimes is the case. We can jump in and help give you our personal assessment, as it can certainly provide more sometimes than a tool can.
Yeah, okay, perfect. And I suppose actually this other one falls quite well in terms of that, where you're talking about people jumping on and assisting. So where there might be claims that are refused by HMRC and pushed back on for any reason, is there an element of service that can assist with that in terms of actually going back and putting a case forward why we think it is valid? Because we've seen obviously a much larger increase with that recently from what you touched on at the start as well.
Well, we have taken on a fair amount of work around, let's say, compliance checks from people who come to us for support. Obviously, this can be quite a lot of work. And even though the system does help a lot with the compliance check aspect, sometimes people might still not have the capacity. So we have successfully helped a number of accountants surmount certain compliance checks that came their way. Obviously, it's all dependent on the quality of the information that comes to us. We haven't worked on the claim originally, but yes, we do provide those services.
Amazing. And I've just got one more. So there was, I think you touched on a few integrations that you have with things like Excel and Xero and softwares. Do you also integrate with many practice management systems and or like tax software specifically as well to sort of push information or job updates into those?
That's a good question. I think we can both cover this, Sarah. So we do also, we haven't talked about it much, but we do bespoke development as well, just because there are so many project management, so many tax systems that the main integrations are available out of the box. If there is something very particular that could integrate with a certain piece of software, in particular CRM, or a certain tax software that somebody's using, and they want a bespoke development, that is something that we do.
Yeah.
Sarah, is there anything else to add there?
Yeah, no, I think you probably hit the nail on the head. I think it's also really important that, one of the key things for us is that we are giving tools that help with existing processes if they have them already. So what we don't want to do is say, we're going to rip up all your processes and give you a new one. If you have one and it works, we want to give you tools to make that workflow even better.
Yes. So,
amazing. So I think that's it in terms of questions. So you guys have done a really good job in terms of covering everything off. Thank you to everybody for jumping on today. As I said earlier, this has been recorded, so you'll get a copy of that after and a follow-up email as well, so you can go back over it. And also, please feel free to share it with anybody else as well. So if you think they're going to be interested in the topic that we've covered today, forward that on. Thank you so much. Oh yeah, go for it. Sorry. Yeah.
We'll have a couple minutes. No, just I know we talked about this quite a bit, but regardless of whether you use ClaimIQ or made.simplr or not, which are wonderful tools, in the current age of AI, we do encourage people to really look at compliance from two aspects: data traceability, making sure it's accurate, and data security, which is often overlooked. So just please keep that in mind when using any AI tools. I just wanted to throw that in there. We're always really pushing that message strongly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I read an interesting news story the other day about somebody that was chucking all sorts of stuff into AI that they shouldn't have been, in sensitive information. So yeah, we have to be really careful, don't we, in terms of what we're doing.
Yes,
Within this.
and I think just being conscious about it and knowing where the data is going, where it potentially could land. And so I think the trouble is if you're using clients' data and they potentially don't know where that data then winds up, that's where you want to know, is it secure? Is it going to hopefully stay within the UK if you can? And is that going to stay confidential? That's the important bit.
Yeah, I heard somebody say, actually, it's quite a good analogy. They said, like, anything you put into, for example, ChatGPT is, think of it as a billboard. So would you be happy with whatever you put in there being shown on a billboard on the other side of the road? And
yes,
that makes me really think now. I'm like, yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah,
What else?
Okay, IP sensitive stuff. It's really worth considering how you're using AI tools. So yes, scrutinize your AI usage, and we can also help train the team as well if you'd like. So yes, AI can be very good, but it can also be very bad.
Yeah, so use it wisely.
Yeah, 100%. So thank you so much for that. Really, really informative. Like I say, just to confirm, there will be an email up around after on there. And if you want to connect with Eneko or Sarah directly as well, feel free to do so after this. Find them on LinkedIn, and then we'll have some follow-up information as well. So thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of your Thursday, or whatever day it may be if you watch this at a later date. And hope you have a good afternoon. Bye, everybody.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks, Dave.